My fellow citizens and residents, today we celebrate International Women's Day 2021. This is an important day of the year. It is a day that the United Nations has set aside for recognition of women, the essence of their being and their contribution. International Women's Day provides us all with a chance to publicly say, we want all women to have a future that is free from stigma, stereotypes, violence, and inequality. Today, we proudly declare that all women should have a future that is sustainable, peaceful, and with equal rights and opportunities. As a father of two young women, I want a world where my daughters not only reach their full potential, but are supported in doing so by all in society. I am proud to lead a government that is committed to true equality for women here in Cinque and Nevis, and indeed throughout the world. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, there were more jobs and more opportunities for women here in Cinque and Nevis, particularly for our younger women. Indeed, prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, there were more women in the workplace than at any time in our recent history. We have created those jobs and those opportunities before, and believe me, we will do it again. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic has set our economy back. We are rebuilding, and we are rebuilding it stronger and better. One of the reasons our small country of Cinque and Nevis is fighting COVID-19 so successfully and rebuilding our economy so quickly is because of the leadership role women have been playing in our COVID-19 management and response. The theme for this year's UN International Women's Day is, and I quote, "Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World." End of quotation. I say to the global community, you only need to look at Cinque and Nevis to see women's leadership in action and to see the strong results that are being delivered during the COVID-19 pandemic. Our health minister is a woman. Our chief medical officer is a woman. Our financial secretary is a woman. Our cabinet secretary is a woman. Our chief personnel officer is a woman. Permanent secretaries in health, in tourism, sports, culture, ICT, talent development and entrepreneurship, sustainable development, legal affairs, etc. are all women. And most of our ambassadors are women. It is their tireless efforts, their skill and determination that have been steadily taking us through this COVID-19 crisis and onward to the promise, stronger and safer future. But it is not just these women leading us through these difficult times. Our nurses, our frontline workers, our caregivers, all these occupations are made up predominantly of women. It is their leadership and their commitment on the front line that is keeping us safe. To you all I say thank you. On behalf of our beloved country, thank you for your leadership at home, in our communities, at the workplaces, and in the wider economy and society of Cinque and Nevis. My government has always been committed to equality and equity for all. We are making a good start, but there is much, much more that needs to be done. On this International Women's Day, I make this commitment as your Prime Minister and as a father of two daughters. As we rebuild our federation post-COVID-19, it will be an equal future. It will be a future that draws on the talent, the experience, and the ambition of our strong and capable women here in Cinque and Nevis. There is nothing this federation cannot achieve when all our people, women and men alike, are valued, supported, and encouraged. From a grateful nation of Cinque and Nevis, particularly from the men, who appreciate all our dear women have done to teach our children to be good and decent human beings, to build our families, our communities, our schools, our churches, and our beloved Cinque and Nevis. I say thank you to our women, and I wish you God's favor on International Women's Day. Thank you, and may God bless you.
10 seconds.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Leadership Matters, a forum through which the Prime Minister keeps you, the people of Cinque and Nevis, informed and updated on what's going on in the Federation. My name is Jacqueline Bryan, and I am your host this evening. It's a pleasure to be here. Last week, I described our panelists as three phenomenal women who were just a few of the phenomenal women who work within the civil service. Tonight, joining Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris are more amazing women who are instrumental to the work that goes on within the Federation in different spheres on a day-to-day basis. So it is quite fitting that they're here when just yesterday, March 8th, Cinque and Nevis joined the world to celebrate and observe International Women's Day. So joining us this evening are Minister of Health, Information, Communication and Technology, or ICT, Entertainment, Entrepreneurship and Talent Development, the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet. Junior Minister in the Premier's Ministry with responsibility for Health and Gender Affairs, the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams. President of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, or CIC, Giselle Matthews. And Chief Executive Officer at the Cable, Patricia Walters. Now, with such a powerhouse panel, I think it goes without saying that we are going to have quite an enlightening conversation and discussion this evening, and I look forward to hearing from them, as well as look forward to hearing from you at the appropriate time. But before we hear from our panelists, let's hear from the Prime Minister, who brings you this program weekly. We'll start with his presentation, and then we'll hear from his guests.
Thank you very much, Jackie. My fellow citizens and residents of our beloved St. Kitts and Nevis, I want to thank you again for tuning in to another edition of Leadership Matters. Every year on the 8th of March, the world celebrates International Women's Day. For more than a century, this day has been set aside to recognize and celebrate women's achievements. But it is also a call to action to close the gap and imbalances that still persist, encouraging everyone to stand up for women's rights and gender equality. Gender equality means that regardless of gender, one is granted the same rights, privileges, and access to opportunities as everyone else. One may question why such a day is necessary. We would find the answer in history, which tells us that about 150 years ago, in most of the world, women could not vote. They could not stand for parliament. They could not own property. They could not get the same pay for equal work. They could not access fair legal support or medical care. And they could not get a proper education, and were even excluded from certain public areas. 150 years ago then, the world, including St. Kitts and Nevis, was very different from the one we now know. However, through the brave and tireless efforts of women and men, here in St. Kitts and Nevis and around the world, who choose to challenge, gradual change was brought to the status quo through advocacy, unionizations, petitions, marches, demonstrations, and the Buckledge riots of the 1930s. Steady progress was achieved over the decades. From gaining rights as an individual, to gaining suffrage or the right to vote, to access to the political spheres, to certain jobs and professions, to advancing closer to equal pay for equal work, International Women's Day is now a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women around the world. Here in St. Kitts and Nevis, we have a rich and storied history on the advancement of women's rights and gender equality. Indeed, consistent with so many other positive international developmental markers, St. Kitts and Nevis has been and continues to be a leader in this regard. We boast some of the highest per capita numbers of women in government and politics, justice, legal and medical professions, professional sports, business, industry, and entrepreneurship, journalism, education, and entertainment and culture. The role played and contributions made by and of women in our St. Kitts and Nevis is irremovable from our place as the best run, best managed small island state anywhere in the world, and one of the best places to live on this planet. As a new nation, having only gained political independence in 1983, St. Kitts and Nevis set a very high standard with regard to the advancement of women with the election of Dame Constance Viola Mitchum to our national parliament in 1984. She was the first woman elected to our National Assembly. It has been a standard of St. Kitts and Nevis to have women not just involved, but leading at the highest levels in all areas of our national development. We can point to persons and the role and position they serve or have served. Among the eminent list, I salute Idris Lewis, designer of our national flag, Mercelyn Hughes, first female Assistant Commissioner of Police of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, and our first female Chief of Immigration. Maritza Williams, World Junior Silver Medalist, Her Excellency Dr. Thelma Philip Brown, Ambassador to the United States of America. Virgil Hodge, Olympian and national record holder. We have Dawn Williams, former CEO of the St. Kitts and Nevis and Anguilla National Bank Group of Companies. Her Excellency Shirley Scarrett Andrew, St. Kitts and Nevis High Commissioner to Canada. She was our first resident High Commissioner to Canada. Jennifer Nero, former Managing Director at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Elsa Wilkin Ambrister, former Vice Consul at the Consulate of St. Kitts and Nevis in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, presently serving at our High Commission in the United Kingdom. Her Excellency Verna Morris, Ambassador to Cuba, and of course we have Her Excellency Madam Choss in Ottawa at this time. The achievements, advancement, and contributions of women in our Twin Island paradise is pleasantly storied. The story continues to get better. Over the past year, we have seen a young woman elected to our National Assembly as the representative for constituency number 3, West Terre, a woman crowned National Calypso Monarch for the second year running, a woman elected for the first time as leader of a national political party on Nevis. Congratulations are in order for them in and of themselves, but indeed for all of us as a people and a nation. To our girls and young women, I implore you to let these individual successes and our collective success inspire you to your own individual achievements and the further advancement in the cause of women's rights and gender equality. We express our profound gratitude to you from the bottom of our hearts and with awe, respect, and reverence for all the things you do, seen and unseen, rewarded and unrewarded, credited and uncredited. On the occasion of this month's celebration of women by our Ministry of Gender Affairs, I wish you happiness, health, success, and prosperity in the years ahead. I trust that Women's Day and every day after will bring us closer to that perfect position to which we all aspire as a people and as a nation. I couldn't end tonight's opening remarks without making a brief statement with respect to the matter of our vaccination rollout. Our greatest challenge as a nation, and the world's greatest challenge at this time, is still the COVID-19 pandemic. Together we shall overcome, and our vaccine rollout represents the final stage of our strategic plan to defeat COVID-19. Our vaccination rollout has been going excellently so far. I must, however, encourage and urge all of our citizens and residents to get vaccinated. I'm advised that on Tuesday, March 9th, 499 persons were vaccinated, 153 on Nevis, and 346 on Cinque. That means a cumulative total of 4,744 persons in Cinque and Nevis have been vaccinated. This represents 14.4% of our target population. We have started only 2 weeks ago. The third week promises to be a very good one. I again congratulate all who have taken the vaccine. I am reminded that this week we extended to the health centers in St. Paul's and Terre and Sadler's, and I want to thank all those who turned out today for their vaccination. Now is the time for our friends, our co-workers and loved ones to step forward to be vaccinated. Some countries have no vaccine as yet. Some countries have not even and could not even start their rollout. We in Cinque and Nevis are fortunate. Do not let it go to waste. The vaccines have a finite life, and we must use them now for our own protection. Returning to the theme of Women's Day, as we celebrate International Women's Day during the month of March, I have the distinct honor to be joined tonight by a bevy of distinguished women who are among the distinctive, talented core of women in leadership. So I want to especially welcome to this edition of Leadership Matters the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet, now a two-term Member of Parliament, duly elected as the member for St. Christopher III. And she serves as our Minister of Health et al. The Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams is a two-term member of the Nevis Island Assembly and Junior Minister of Health. She is well known as a champion of community development and women's affairs. Miss Patricia Walters, the CEO of the Cable, is a world-class entrepreneur in the area of ICT, and Mrs. Giselle Matthews serves as President of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Mrs. Matthews is the first woman leader of the business community. I look forward to their perspectives on issues relating not only to gender affairs, but perhaps most importantly, the contribution women can make to ignite recovery efforts on Cinque and Nevis. Again, to all those who are tuned in and log on, I want to thank you for taking the time to listen and to view this particular edition. I hope that you'll find tonight's presentations to be truly informative, insightful, and instructive. May God continue to bless all our people, and may He find favor, give His favor to this beautiful country of St. Kitts and Nevis. I thank you again for viewing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. We'll now hear from the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for the introduction. I am so excited to be here tonight on this special edition of Leadership Matters, more so because of the panelists that are here with us tonight. These are women who I've been inspired by throughout my journey, and women who I believe have made some great contributions and continue to make great contributions to our country. If I am to speak personally, I can say in terms of my political career, I've been inspired by the work of the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams, who have been, as the Prime Minister would have indicated, a woman who have been pushing for equality for women and woman empowerment. She was always someone who was willing to give an encouraging word so that I can keep pushing as well on my political journey. And so I am so happy and honored to be able to share this panel with her this evening. If I could speak about my IT career, I can think about how inspired I have been by Miss Pat Walters, the CEO of the cable. I remember her days at Cable and Wireless, and just seeing a woman so powerful as her being able to lead an IT world, a world that mostly dominated by men, and to see a woman who was able to step up and become the lead in that position, it gave me that encouragement that indeed my path, my ICT path, was something that was attainable, even though most persons thought that women were not capable. Seeing her undertake that role convinced me that indeed women are more than capable, and I am thankful for the inspiration that she gave just by the position she held and how she handled every situation. And even now at the cable, the way she's able to turn around the cable and take it from where it was to one of the leading cable companies within the entire region, I am so proud to be able to say that, again, a woman is leading in ICTs. And then we have the president of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, a position that has never been held by a woman before. And so it is indeed a pleasure to be able to have a woman who is now leading business within the private sector as a whole in St. Kitts and Nevis, sharing her own thoughts and responsibilities and being able to guide the ship, even in these difficult times of COVID. I heard her speak yesterday at the International Women's Day program that was done by the Department of Gender Affairs. And to hear her story of how she was able to navigate and take command, that is what we call woman leadership. And I am inspired every day by these fine women who continue to lead. At this important time of year, with the UN's International Women's Day just yesterday, we recognize the important role women play in leading our society. We proudly say that all women should have a future that is sustainable, peaceful, and with equal rights and opportunities for all. Every day, I see amazing work being done by powerful women across St. Kitts and Nevis, and within my own constituency number 3, from opening new businesses to leading our communities. While we recognize the women in leadership across the world on International Women's Day, we must also remember the women in our own communities that are achieving an equal future here in St. Kitts and Nevis, some of whom are sitting here this evening. I am proud to be part of a government that is committed to true equality for women here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Prior to the COVID pandemic, there were more jobs and more opportunities for women here in the Federation, particularly for our young women. There were more women in work than at any time in our recent history. Yes, COVID did set our economy back, but we are rebuilding, and we are rebuilding strongly. The theme for this year's UN Women International Women's Day was Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World. Women of St. Kitts and Nevis have played a leading role in our Federation's fight against COVID-19, which is why we have been so successful in our management and response to the pandemic. Our Chief Medical Officer is a woman. Our Head of Finance, our Financial Secretary, is a woman. Our Cabinet Secretary is a woman. Our nurses, our frontline workers, our carers, all these occupations are made up predominantly of women. It is their leadership and their commitment on the front line that is keeping us all safe. While we have made a start on creating a more equal society where everybody has the opportunity to succeed, there is still so much more that needs to be done. As we look to build a stronger, safer future for St. Kitts and Nevis, we can only achieve this with the talent, the experience, and the ambition of our strong women here in our Federation. As Minister of Health, ICT, Entertainment, Entrepreneurship, and Talent Development, I am committed to ensuring that our women have every opportunity to lead our nation to a brighter future. Women, this is time for us to put our hands up and stand up and take our seat at the table. As was said, I think I heard it just yesterday, again from the President. Bring your own chair if you have to. But it's time for us to take a stand. It's time for us to do our part. And I am so honored to be here tonight, seated among some very, very exceptional women who continue to be trailblazers in their own rights. And I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next we'll hear from the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams.
Thank you, Madam Host. I deem it an honor and a great privilege to have been asked to sit on this panel this evening. I salute my sisters who are here with me, and I salute sisters everywhere as we continue to celebrate and applaud women for the excellent work they have been doing around the world. I also encourage women to strive for excellence and to pursue happiness. Honorable Prime Minister, I would like to place on record my profound thanks to you for giving me an opportunity to share your stage. I applaud your efforts in having an inclusive approach as it pertains to the development of women. You have placed women at the epicenter of decision-making, and this is indeed commendable. And so, who is Hazel Brandy Williams? I am a humble product of the village of Brickhill in Nevis, and by extension, a progressive community of the St. James's Parish. I am proud to note that St. James's Parish is where I obtained my early education. The whole of St. James's Parish has laid the foundation to what I have become today. However, I have been given this opportunity to articulate my leadership journey, and so I must do so and reflect on the foundation that has been built. I want to speak of one person who would have been very instrumental in building this strong and solid foundation, that of my mother Susanna of blessed memory. I also want to highlight the work of my dearly departed husband as well, who would have been my rock and who would have taught me some very important lessons, how to live in a male-dominated space. My journey started as a community activist because I was always happy to be of service to people. I was involved in all the organizations of my church, and all the organizations of my community. It is from that involvement in these groups that I developed some valuable skills: mobilizing people, fundraising, executing major activities, and most of all, how to live, how to cooperate, and to develop a great love and passion for my fellow men. And so my political journey started 10 years ago. In 2011, 5 women, along with myself, were trained in transformational leadership by CIWIL. CIWIL is the Caribbean Institute for Women in Leadership. And out of that cohort of women, I today am still the only woman who would have made it to Parliament. But I am encouraging the other ladies that is not over. Your turn will come. As we continue to push for progress, your term will definitely come. When I returned to Nevis from that training, randomly, I met the Honorable Vance Amory. And being the person he is, who was always asking about my well-being, he wanted to know what I was doing next. He saw me making frequent trips to St. Kitts and was very interested. And so I said to him, I have just received some training from CIWIL. I explained to him what CIWIL was all about, and he said, continue to work in your community. Someday, that community work will pay off. And so I became more involved in what happened in my community. I then declared to him that I want to get involved in politics. And he said, the time will come, just continue to work. I can recall in 2013, when the CCM party regained the reign in Nevis, the Honorable Vance Amory invited me to sit with him in cabinet and in Parliament. And that for me was my biggest break. That for me was a resounding moment. And so I was given the task of preparing and supervising the Ministry of Social Development, Community Development, Youth, and Sports. I developed an interest in gender and all matters relating to gender. And so I made gender equality my platform. So in 2015, when the United Nations launched the 17 Sustainable Development Goals and the Development Agenda, I was ready to go. My platform was already set. And so this platform was the driving force behind organizing training for women, not only in St. Kitts and Nevis, but regionally and internationally. 2013 and 2014, we organized conferences just for women empowerment. 2015 and 2016, we had a forum on the SDGs. 2017, we hosted the first biennial conference for women and girls, a sub-regional forum, and we looked at Sustainable Development Goal 4, quality education, and 5, gender equality. In 2018, we hosted a forum and we looked at mainstreaming gender into national development. We looked at SDGs 5, equality, 8, decent work and economic growth, and 10, reducing inequalities. And as I said before, I had a passion and I have a passion for gender and all things relating to gender and gender equality. And that is why I sought to bring those conferences to the forefront, not only to benefit women from Nevis and St. Kitts, but the region as a whole. In 2019, we hosted the second biennial forum for women and girls, as well as for ministers of health and ministers of gender affairs. We then looked at Sustainable Development Goal 3, good health and well-being, and again, Sustainable Development number 5, gender equality. And then again, in 2019, we hosted yet another forum on women and girls in peace and security using the South-South approach. All these conferences were funded by our allied partners, UN Women, UNFPA, the United Nations Population Fund, the Commonwealth Secretariat, and the Parliamentary, and it benefited all the islands in the Caribbean. So during my 8-year tenure as a parliamentarian, I have participated in many regional and international forums. Worthy of note is the Commonwealth Women's Forum held in London in 2018 and the Women's Affairs Ministers' Conference held in Nairobi, Kenya in 2019. I was afforded this opportunity to sit on these panels because the Commonwealth Secretariat recognized the work that I was doing in the Caribbean region. I am the present chair of the Caribbean Parliamentary Forum on Sexual and Reproductive Health and Rights and holds other membership in regional and international boards. The experiences I have gathered abroad have been translated into many projects and programs that I have initiated here in Nevis and Cinque. Nevis, namely the housing for single parents, the fit and wellness rehabilitative care for stroke victims, the boot camp for women in entrepreneurship, and many others. I also initiated a mentorship program for girls, which is ongoing, and I am also continuing my community outreach programs. Once again, I would like to express my gratitude to the Honorable Prime Minister for affording me this opportunity to be on this panel of distinguished women, women who have charted the course, women who have survived in a male-dominated space, but they have made it. They have pushed for progress. I applaud our women who continue to fight, who are on the front line and continue to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. To them, we say thank you for a job well done. St. Kitts Nevis must be commended because at our front line of the COVID pandemic, we have two women, Dr. Hazel Laws in St. Kitts and Dr. Judy Nisbet in Nevis. We commend them highly. I also commend all our women warriors, the prayer warriors in our churches, the agriculture warriors in the farms, and all women who are pushing for progress. Once again, it is a pleasure for me to be here, and I look forward to the discussion that will ensue. Thank you. Thank you
so much. We are truly blessed to have you here. We're so pleased to see you in the room, as well as the others. We'll now hear from the president of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Giselle Matthew.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Honourable Prime Minister for his invitation to be part of this evening's panel, his special edition for International Women's Day. And I would like to welcome everyone to the viewership of ZIZ online, radio, streaming, and of course television. And to the ladies who are with me tonight, I'm extremely privileged to be here, and I hope we enjoy the discussion later this evening. We've been asked to give a background on our journey of leadership and our leadership roles. And quite honestly, my story is not one of struggle, but probably one of, some might say, privileged and fortunate circumstances. I was not born into difficult circumstances. My father was a successful businessman, and we had a stable family life with a mother and father, siblings, supportive grandparents, etc. I was born on North Bay Street in St. Kitts on May 24th, 1968, to Charles and Margaret Brisbane. I attended the St. Teresa's Convent School, at the time now ICCS, and the Bastay High School until grade 11, and completed the latter part of my high school education in Toronto, Canada, at a girls' private boarding school, Branksome Hall. After gaining my Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and a minor in journalism from the University of Western Ontario in London, Canada, I returned home and joined Odie Brisbane and Sons, my father's business, in 1992. Following 3 months of him insisting I pursue the exercise of finding myself a job. After 3 months, I found myself a job, 2 jobs, one at TDC in HR and one at the central bank. When my father decided to advise me I was coming to work for him, he just wanted to teach me how to apply for a job and prove that I was actually employable. He asked for 5 years, I gave him 14. Under my father's very strict guidance and tutelage, I worked zealously to expand the family business of Odi Brisbane and Sons and set up a sales and marketing department. I was assigned a lady called Trifina Douglas, who many of you might know. I think she's been with the firm close to 35 years. And he assigned her to oversee me. She was extremely strict. And I went to every supermarket, small shop in Cinque and Nevis with her. Many thought I was working for B&K Supermarket or Rams. I was packing shelves, dusting, doing whatever I needed to do to look after my product line. My father insisted I took a toolbox with all the necessary tools to ensure that our product was always well presented so that when the agents came on island, they would be proud of the work I was doing. I held a bachelor's degree. I was paid $900 a month, and out of that, $50 had to go to charity. He taught me at a very young age, at 24, that on my first salary, I needed to choose between 3 charities, the Children's Home, the JCs, or the Pediatric Assistance League. I chose the Pediatric Assistance League, and the rest is history. In 2009, I took on the presidency of the Pediatric Assistance League until 2019. I served for 10 years, and I became a member when I was only 23 years old. And that's how I learned charity. Having had enough of the food industry, I decided in 2002, after my father retired and sold the majority shares of his company to Goddard Enterprises in Barbados, I decided I wanted to pursue a completely different path, and I thought I had the wings to fly to do that. In 2003, I took up a completely new path in the position of general manager at Sunlink, which is a leading Caribbean destination management company, which was at the time setting up shop at the Marriott Resort, which had just opened. I led a dynamic sales team of 25 people and an event management into an industry that was completely new to Cinque and to me. It was a matter of swim or sink, and I've always liked to swim. And so I learned very quickly the job, and we took this destination, I believe, into an area of corporate incentive programming, which today is a huge area of business for most of the named hotels. However, my desire to start my own business in 2007, I realized my dream was really to open my own business. And so the birth of Harper's Office Depot in 2007. When I approached my father, he asked me, why did I think office supplies would sell? I said, well, it's a purpose. People need a purpose. And so he supported me, and hence the store was opened on 4th Street in Bastille. In 2015, I was able to purchase what was then Innova Foods factory, and we renovated it into the modern Harper's Office Superstore, now in the industrial site. My real passion is still the community, and so today I still serve in the background on the Pediatric Assistance League as a trustee. At multiple periods over my work life, I also served as vice chair in Music Festival Committee, Marketing Committee. I was heavily involved in relaunching of Juve bands back in the 90s for the early Juve parties in the parking lot at ODB, for any of you people who remember those days. From 2010 to 2019, I served also on the board of the Cinque and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, of course, for the past 5 years. But my previous position was vice president for 2 years. I now bear the distinction of the first female elected president of the CIC in the 70 years of the Chamber's existence. However, my climb up the ladder at the CIC was mostly really due to the encouragement and support of the cheering on of the men in my life. And I grew up in a family with 4 brothers and 3 sisters and 4 brothers. I lived the better part of my life in the home with my brothers, so I related really well to men, and I still do. And I believe that that's why I was able to sit, and I'm able to sit in the position where I am, because we have to be realistic and honest here. If the men are not on our side, And if we do not have the support of men, we are not going to make it in this world where women need to be in leadership positions. And I don't mean that we don't have our own merit to sit on, but we do need them to welcome us in. And so within the chamber, many of you know historically that the chamber was always very much a male-dominated organization. However, my father dragged me to many meetings, lunches, chamber events. My mother was never keen on going. I was often his companion. He would insist I stand and ask questions, even if I was nervous. I was young, I wasn't sure. He said, people are too quiet, they're too scared to ask questions. You stand up, and he would dig me with a pen in my side. So much so I started to take a notepad and a pen to the lunches because I knew I'd be expected to stand. And so I started to get very bold, and I would ask questions that no one else wanted to ask, or something that people thought was controversial or would create some chatter. But my father loved that. He loved getting people thinking and speaking out and being honest. And so hence, many years later, I joined back. I became board member in 2007 when I first opened my business. And quickly, my father said to me, focus on building your business. Remove yourself. Your business needs you. So I served my 2 years, 2007 to 2009. I served my 2 years and focused on building my business, Harper's Office Depot. And many years later, when I was asked to join again, I felt I was in a position at that point and that I could spare the time, because it is a long commitment and sacrifice in many ways. And so I have to thank today many other male figures in the chamber for allowing me the opportunity to, and the encouragement to push me to the point of being here today. And that is Michael Moulton, I have to say. Jose Rosa, and our recent past president, Farron Lawrence, who told me he was not taking the position unless I was his vice president. And so I would like to just leave you with this and say, regardless of your background, your upbringing, or your circumstances, what we do know is very clear, that every girl and every woman has the potential to make the world a better place. And that potential lies in the act of thinking higher thoughts and feeling deeper things. When women and girls everywhere begin to see themselves as more than inanimate objects, but as beautiful beings capable of deep feelings and higher thoughts, this has the capacity to change the world all around. The kind of change that is for the better. Remember, high in the head and deep in the heart. Antlers on your mind and anchors in your heart. That is by C. Joy Bell. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Mrs. Matthews. We're now going to hear from Patricia Walters, who is the Chief Executive Officer at the Cable.
Thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister, for inviting me to participate in this very special edition today of International Women's Day. And welcome to my esteemed panelists, all of who I admire tremendously. To the viewers and listeners, locally and international, and shout out to Chapeltown Leeds, who I'm sure is watching as well right now. My introduction is going to touch on my journey and my current leadership purpose. I'll start by saying, for me, leadership was by choice and not by chance. And I'm going to take you back to my 28th birthday. I didn't know it then, but it would be a critical crossroad in my professional life. I had just landed my dream job. I was a fully qualified accountant. I had landed a job in London, in the UK, in the city, for a big shipping firm. And I walked in, and I had shaken off all of the prejudice and the interviews that had me blocked as soon as I walked through the door because of the color of my skin, and landed this great job. And my new manager came to me and she said, she said, Patricia, we're so pleased to have you. We're so pleased that you are joining the team. And I was like, wow, this is really good. I'm in London in the big firm. She said, because you know Jane, who was here before, you know, she was black and she used to get on the desk and she used to dance for us and tell us jokes and make us laugh. And I went, what? You're pleased that I've come here to entertain you? I said, I'm sorry, I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to take on a role in the organization that's a valuable role. I went home that night, it was my 28th birthday, And one of my friends, who wasn't working at the time, decided that he couldn't really afford to buy me a present, but he would make me a wall hanging, a picture frame to hang on the wall. And in it, he cut out a picture of Rosa Parks right on the front at the top, sitting in the back of the bus. And then he had typed up this saying that said, "Women constitute half of the world's population, perform nearly 2/3 of its work hours, receive 1/10 of the world's income, and own less than 1/100th of the world's property." And he said, but all of that is gradually changing thanks to women like you. Happy birthday. That was my crossroad. From that day forward, I chose not to be a token, not to be thought of any less or inferior to anybody else. I chose to progress on my own merits, to be the best in my profession, to support others, to achieve their full potential, and not to step on or pull others down for me to look good. I chose to be motivated, not manipulated, to be useful, not used, to deliver results and not excuses, to self-excel and not unscrupulously compete, and to listen to my inner voice, not the random opinion of others. Simply to be the best me. Excellence is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention, sincere effort, and intelligent execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. Choice, not chance, determines your destiny. And that's a quote from Aristotle. I truly believe that everyone is destined for greatness. But you really have to believe it. You have to imagine it. You have to visualize it. And you have to work at it. You know, I do not believe that you should just be entitled because of your background, because of who you know, because of your tenure. You need to earn it. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans for welfare, not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." And that's to all of us. Your purpose is your purpose. Your purpose could be a great teacher, a mother, a coach, a world champion, a cook, a hairstylist, a barber, a seamstress, a model, a pastor, a CEO, a prime minister. Whatever it is, do it with passion, do it with excellence. My leadership purpose at this season in my life is to use my experience, skills and passion to support the digital transformation of our great federation. Access to technology is unfortunately one of the great dividers left in the world. And we together, all together, the government, the other internet providers, the Ministry of ICT, we're all determined to leave no citizen behind in our quest of digital transformation. I will use my position and my influence to provide affordable, available, accessible internet to every resident and citizen of Cinque. It's not an easy journey, but these things rarely are. The pandemic has triggered a seismic increase on internet reliability and customer expectations. To remain relevant, we have to make significant investment in our infrastructure, our people, our service and our systems. But I've started, and we as a federation have started, and the destination is in sight. And the truth is that while talent may be evenly distributed, sadly, opportunity is not. And we want to provide digital opportunities to the ordinary man, to the young, to the unemployed, to the single parent. We want to enrich lives through enabling access to technology and see our talent build products that can leapfrog existing goods and services and build the next revolutionary software. We have the talent, we just have to nurture and enable it. So digitalization is my leadership passion right now. It's an all-of-society approach, and together with the other internet providers, the government, the Ministry of ICT, the app and website developers, the electronic banking and e-commerce institutions, together I have no doubt that we will successfully enable this transformation, where our people will always be connected from the time they leave home until they return. I really am excited about the many possibilities that lie ahead, and I look forward to the day that our citizens and our residents will not be judged by the square miles of this small nation, the small population size, a perception of limited access to the digital world, but will be recognized and applauded as leaders in the digital age. Thank you.
Is it possible to admire people more than you already do? Because if it is, I am probably that right now. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm sure we have persons who are looking at the program right now and thinking the same thing. Wow, I did not know that was their story. And it's quite an amazing story. So I can't wait to hear what people have to say about your stories. But before we get to that, we have to take a break. And I'm going to share with you the numbers so you can write them down. Of course, they're listed at the bottom of the screen for your convenience. But just to let you know, if you want to participate in the program once we return, you can do so by dialing 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, or the international number, which is 1-239-645-4500. We also have WhatsApp numbers that you can send messages or voice notes to. So if you want to send a message via WhatsApp, that number is 661-5683. That's 661-5683. Or you can send a voice note to 660-7168. That's 660-7168. And during a break, I'm told we're going to be premiering a song about the importance of getting vaccinated by the one and only De Jour. So it's going to be an interesting break. I'm sure you'll enjoy it just as much as you're enjoying the program. Stay tuned.
It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gon' be safe. Everybody gon' be one safe. Kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up. De Jour here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
International Women's Day is here once more. On behalf of the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, I salute women the world over on this day that is set aside to pay tribute and render honor, respect, and gratitude to them. We applaud women for the pivotal role they continue to play as nurturers, mothers, caregivers, sisters, mentors, role models, leaders, and unsung heroes. International Women's Day 2021 is being observed under the theme, Women in Leadership, Achieving an Equal Future in a COVID-19 World, with the sub-theme of #Choose to Challenge. This year's theme forces every one of us to step back and assess the role that women have played and continue to play, both in the fight against COVID-19 and in spite of COVID-19. This analysis therefore illustrates the urgency of now for gender equity in every sphere of human endeavor, be it business, education, industry, government, politics, social and economic development, and leadership in general. The theme is a clarion call for space to be taken up in creating, broadening, and enriching opportunity for women and girls everywhere. The theme also demands the imperative for a just, equitable, and inclusive approach to global development so women can take their rightful places in leadership. The COVID-19 pandemic has put women front and center in terms of the rendering of professional health care in nursing and medicine. Single mothers have also been more seriously affected by job loss and displacement, which were induced by the worldwide recession that has been caused by the pandemic. There is much to celebrate insofar as women's leadership is concerned in the face of COVID-19. A careful assessment of some countries that have better handled the pandemic response are, by correlation, headed by female heads of government. One need only look at jurisdictions like New Zealand, Germany, Iceland, Taiwan, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, and one would realize the careful, early, and decisive strides taken by their female government leaders to protect public health, control the spread of infection, and keep the death rates low. These strides are now paying immense dividends for these countries. Such a track record by this small group of women leaders is worthy of the highest commendation. It should also serve as an inspiration to all women, particularly when one considers the following facts. Women serve as heads of state or government in only 22 countries. Some 119 jurisdictions have never had a female leader. Only 21% of government ministers are women. Only 14 countries have achieved 50% or more women in cabinets. Just 25% of all national parliamentarians are women. Only in Latin America and the Caribbean and Europe and North America do women hold more than 30% of the parliamentary seats. And based on the current state of women's leadership, gender equality in the highest positions of power will not be attained for another 130 years. On the occasion of International Women's Day 2021, it is worthy of remembrance that just 4 months ago, in the middle of the COVID-19 crisis, the World Health Organization, WHO, chose to place women's health on the front burner in a highly visible way. In November 2020, the WHO launched a global strategy to accelerate elimination of cervical cancer through a three-pronged approach involving vaccination with the human papillomavirus HPV vaccine, screening, and treatment. The target date for the strategy has been set at 2030, the same year by when the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, should have been well on the path to actualization. By
Welcome back to Leadership Matters. This evening, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris is joined by Minister of Health, Information, Communication and Technology, Entertainment, Entrepreneurship and Talent Development, the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet, Junior Minister in the Premier's Ministry with responsibility for Health and Gender Affairs, the Honorable Hazel Brandy Williams, President of the Cinque and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Giselle Matthews, and the Chief Executive Officer at the Cable, Patricia Walters. And they shared their remarkable journey to leadership with us, and we were truly inspired by their stories. And this is a stage where we open up the phone lines to hear from you. So, without further ado, we'll go directly to the phone lines to take our first call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good night, Leadership Matters.
Hi, good evening.
And good night, Mrs. Bucky guys. I want to say good night to all the lovely ladies and tell them happy belated International Day. and to tell the PM that he continued to show leadership every Tuesday, week after week. And I'm very grateful for that. So people can actually listen to how the country keep on progressing. Before I go into the meat of it, I want to acknowledge a few persons that jumped out to me. And first, I will start with the PS of International Trade et al., Ms. Jasmine Week, who are doing a very wonderful job in trade. I will look at Ms. Kebas in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I look at Ms. Hughes, who's taking care of immigration. What about Ms. Charisma Patrick, who deals with marketing for Flow? You have the Honorable Wendy Phipps, who also in charge of Ministry of Trade and Labor. And I mentioned those because I saw something circulating, and the Prime Minister continued to tell people that be careful with people who are trying to say bad things about the government and stay focused, because what is being circulating that the government is not hiring women. Women are not getting jobs. And I'm happy that the Prime Minister selected such a wonderful panel. I am so touched that I don't even want to ask any question. I just want to listen to how these ladies have progressed, and they are now helping our community in some form of way. Look at the Honorable Aquila Byron. She was ambassador. She's now a minister. She's now dealing with health, and she's also dealing with IT. Very young and vibrant. You know, and you really have to acknowledge these people. So let me ask her this two questions to Ms. Giselle Matthew, who is in charge of the Chamber of Industry. What are the plans for moving Cinque forward in terms of price control and trade? And then to Ms. Aquila Byron Nisbet, remember the last time I spoke to you about the Carling home. I'm still holding that because it's something that's dear to me, because at someday I might end up there, somebody close to me might end up there, and I need down there to be fixed properly. People, ministers who take over that portfolio seems to, every time they come, they say they're going to fix it, and it seems to be going on the back burner. So once again, Ms. Byron, I know you say you don't do it, but I'm just reminding you that I'm going to hold you to the feet. With that, I want to say good night, and once again, thanks for your wonderful support, and continue to be safe and healthy during this pandemic. In the wrap-up, Mr. Prime Minister, could you let the public know how is your ministers dealing with the pandemic in terms of how are they helping to get the word out in their constituency with the vaccine? Because we must roll up and we must take the vaccine, because we are going to fight it, and we are going to be number one again in tourism industry, and we're going to move things forward because we have a good leader. That's the Honorable Prime Minister Timothy Harris. This is Bucky Garrett, and Bucky has got it. Over and out.
Over and out, Bucky. Thank you so much for your contribution. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Good night, Mr. Prime Minister. This is Dumpling speaking.
There.
I feel proud of you with them beautiful ladies who give me my night supper, especially Jacqueline with a beautiful smile, and Miss Pat Walters. I love that lady so much. I love Pat so much. Mr. Prime Minister, that lady from Nevis, she said a mouthful. And Mr. Prime Minister, you bring on them wonderful ladies. So it's so beautiful. I enjoy your show tonight. I'm watching all of them smiling with a nice split teeth. And Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for my gift yesterday. Lord, every minute I smell my flowers. And now you bring on these beautiful ladies, like these beautiful flowers to send for me. Good night. This coming from Dumpling. Pat, love you, love you, love you, love you. See you all.
Good night. Thank you so much, Dumpling. And Dumpling is a woman I've always admired because she's never afraid to speak her mind. That's one thing I can say about her. Years, we go back years. Thank you so much for your contribution. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Hello, you might have to lower the volume on your radio or television or computer, but you're live.
Hello?
Hello, good evening.
Hi. I was just wondering, as we've been kind of with the borders restricted for the past year, when we do reach the 70% threshold of vaccinations in St. Kitts, and with foreign people being vaccinated, do you think that we would be able to open up in a way where vaccinated persons can come in without quarantine to get the tourism economy going full speed again? Thank you for your feedback.
We've made a note of your question, and luckily we have the Minister of Health here. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
This is a lady with a heavy voice. Honorable Prime Minister, this is Charlene Warner. I am so happy for this panel. You have chosen some of the greatest persons as women in this country, stalwarts, great leaders. I missed the first half of the program, but I was very overjoyed when I heard Giselle, when she said that she didn't come up with a struggle and what her father instilled in her, which sort of made me look at myself in the same vein. I must also say I heard the latter part of Minister Brandy. She was very good too, and I am so proud of Pat. You know, from time to time when I see women in leadership roles, I am overjoyed. Because once I step out of my home, I always tell myself I have to be a leader. Once I become a second person, I don't want to take part. I always want to lead. So I'm very proud of all you women on the panel. I also want to give kudos to Honorable Wendy Phipps, because when she was announced as the Minister of Health then, and she made her debut in Parliament, I cried. I sent her a WhatsApp and I said, Wendy, I'm so proud of you. Not as a Sandy Pointer per se, but as a woman stepping out as a leader among the young people. Aquila, of course, you know I got you every time. I want to say, Aquila, continue to do what you're doing. It's your first time in government, and you have been doing a great job for this short time you have been there. And once again, Mr. Prime Minister, I must say kudos to you as a great leader of this Federation of Cinque and Nevis, and to all the great leaders as women. I salute you, and I look forward to joining you, women, Giselle, Pat, Aquila, Brandy, in the leadership role as a woman outstanding in Cinque Nevis and the world beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words of encouragement and support, and for contributing to the program. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Mr. Prime Minister, good night. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Doors are open to come Nevis, you know, so hurry up, come up. Aquila, my darling, happy Women's Day to you. Everybody in the panel is Hazel girl, Nevis girl, you're hot on. Love you, Hazel, number one.
Here's Brandy Williams. That shout is all yours. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Good evening.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening, Miss Moderator, Miss Byron, and Mr. Prime Minister, and your beautiful ladies at the table. This is radical culture. I have to big up the ladies. They are wonderful, and I always praise up the ladies because they don't make no joke. Whenever they see something going wrong, they stamp it out one time. And Mr. Prime Minister, I don't know if you experienced this, but when a woman and her companion get in any argument in the night, it could be 11 o'clock, and they say, get out of here, they're flinging you at one time. But a man will tell a lady, I give you 2 weeks to get out. So women are very serious, and I'm proud of them, and happy International Women's Day. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for turning around the ship of economy from crashing and finance iceberg, because we were heading for debt on the sea. Now, Miss Bryan, I have to give you your kudos every time I have to listen to you on any program. You and Mr. Lesroy Williams, you all are two great persons that the Prime Minister selected in his government, and you all are doing great. Steady. The saying said, behind every good man is a good woman. But behind every good worker, there should be good pay. And Miss Bryan, if England have to advertise help needed for a woman, please ignore that advertisement. Stay with us. We need you. You are doing a wonderful job, and keep it up. Keep your hands up. Now I have two questions. Mr. PM, as Minister of National Security, every week, every day, we have complained about people abusing the law, breaking the law of Noise Pollution Act. 8:30 tonight, a vehicle passed where I live, and you could have stayed in care and hear the noise that vehicle have coming out of it. So we want to know, what are the police them doing about these noise on the street? That's question number one. And then to the lady there for the Chamber of Commerce, do you think it is right for somebody from America to send, let's say, $1,000 to put on their U.S. account on any bank here in St. Kitts for the MoneyGram people, the money institution people who collect the money, to take away you, the receiver option, from telling them what kind of money you want they should give you? They take it away and want to give you EC. So if anybody from America send money down here to put on the U.S. account, what you must do with it? What they going to give you EC to go in the bank or put it on the people's U.S. account? That is not right, and that is not how it's supposed to be. So we want to know what the Chamber of Commerce can do about it, and if they can do something about it, please do something about it, because they are taking advantage of we, the receivers, when we get U.S. dollars, by giving us EC. And that must be stopped. I consider that to be robbery. Thank you very much. I'll listen out the ear for the answers.
Kind words, Culture. I really appreciate it. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live.
Good evening to everybody on the panel.
Good evening.
Mr. Prime Minister, what do you indicate here tonight? That your next national hero can be a woman. That is all I see from these beautiful women and well-educated ladies that you have around you. Now, Mr. Prime Minister, all I can tell you, continue to do your best, continue to steer the ship in the right direction, and continue, you and your cabinet, to do your best. And to Miss Byron, you came from the village area, and the last person never had the opportunity to be sitting where you're positioning. He come in opposition and he went out as opposition. So you continue to keep your head on and hold your fort. And Mr. Prime Minister, coming back to you, right? Don't bother with that former leader who walking and telling people that the injection high in water is the water in the oil. Don't pay no mind. He served in government for 30 years, gave up all his doctorship, and now he's still in, so can't go to practice again. And my beautiful two ladies over there, Miss Walters and Miss Thing, I cannot talk about all you because you all is an inspiration to the young people at St. Kitts. So God bless you all and continue to do your work and serve the nation good. God bless everybody on the panel. Good night.
Thank you so much. We can respond to some of the questions now, and then we'll go back to the phone lines. We have a few questions so far, so we are able to address as many as possible. And I think, Mrs. Matthews, we can start with you because most of the first question and a couple others went to you. And what plans are there in terms of moving Cinque forward for private control and trade? And the question about money transfer businesses that was just posed.
Okay, well, thank you, callers. So in terms of trade, the first question, I believe, was in relation to price control and trade. I don't want to mislead and give any information that is not passed, but I'm sure our Prime Minister is right here with me. The Cinque and Nevis, the CARICOM Consumer Protection Bill, I know is a matter that we are discussing at the Chamber. I know that our Executive Director has been in touch with the Director of Consumer Affairs on that matter. The Chamber has discussed at board level, and we are getting feedback from our membership. on our concerns, suggestions, maybe observations on this bill. It's quite lengthy. It's quite a document that needs and requires a lot of discussion and collaboration along with the government. So together we will be working on that protection bill, which the Prime Minister might be able to give you detail on the date of any deadlines on that particular bill. I'm not certain about that. So that would cover any price control concerns, but I will touch on a little bit more on price control because I believe all of us as consumers have seen a rise in prices in the supermarkets and in general. And that has been a debate. It has come up at many forums that I've been to. I think even the Prime Minister has raised it himself. And it is a concern because we are seeing it and it's broad. But with COVID and with a pandemic or any sort of disaster, there's this demand and supply. And even being in business myself, I've found that trying to source certain items are very difficult and prices are all over the place. We're finding it very difficult to keep prices stable. Anything from dry goods to retail to consumed goods. But I believe that we do need to do the exercise which we have talked about before and raised, and we're hoping, because the Chamber is not an enforcement agency and we have our members, it's a conflict. We cannot get out there and do it ourselves. It needs to be done from a source within the government, and I believe the Consumer Affairs Department is working on a list of items that they can look at and take a broad scope sheet, Excel, going to the different supermarkets and get an idea of what's really happening. But I believe we have to look at the consumer price index, and I believe that's what we really have to be looking at and see what is determining this and what is driving this sort of price increases. And what was the next question, Jackie? Help me here.
About money transfer businesses.
Oh, right.
Not giving customers the option to receive money in US.
So well, that's a difficult one to answer. We live in a free enterprise. The Chamber cannot control those matters, but what I can say to you, I do agree, it is a concern on the rates, but you have to understand that you are being provided with a service. I don't know what the costs are involved and the fees for that transfer, because there are many background costs that take place between the banks when the money gets moved. We do have a banking association rep in the Chamber, many of the banks are members of the Chamber, and there's the Banking Association who has a president. So we can ask the question, but the central bank, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, is also the regulatory body of the commercial banks. So those questions, really, it's very difficult for me to answer that question, but I would advise you to probably direct those questions, but we can raise it. So hope I was able to give you some insight into how we can move forward with these questions. Thank you.
For the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet, we had a question to you about the Carding home. The call wanted an update on that and your plans, as well as a question about whether or not quarantine will still be a requirement once we get to 70% of the population being vaccinated.
Thanks, Jackie. I'll start with the Carding home. Yes, we are making our plans for renovations to the Carding home. As the caller would have said, the Carding home is something that has been on the table many times in terms of the need for it to be upgraded and renovated. Personally, for me, I have somewhat of an attachment to the Carding home, having grown up most of my younger years on Carding Avenue. So the Carding home has always been a staple within our family life, having lived just right in front of the Carding home. What I can say is that we would have had the initial meetings with the Public Works and Health to determine how we will move forward in terms of the renovation. The Carding home renovations and upgrades were budgeted for during this year's budget season. The health team, along with Public Works, have already visited the site. Public Works is currently working on the plans in terms of the upgrades that we are expecting to deliver for the Cardian home. We have suggested such upgrades as even including private rooms, double rooms for individuals, a nursing bay, and major upgrades to that facility. So the work have already started, and yes, the intention is to be able to deliver an upgraded Cardian home. I've made that pledge, and that is something, most persons who know me well enough, if I say that this is something that we are going to work towards, then consider it done. As it relates to the vaccination, we keep saying since the start of the vaccination rollout program, we must get to 70% of our population vaccinated in order for us to be able to achieve herd immunity. Once we achieve that level, the 70% and the herd immunity, then the quarantine will be looked at and adjustments will be made accordingly. So I would like to encourage persons to get vaccinated. If you have already been vaccinated, thank you so much for having your first dose. Don't forget, in 10 weeks, you will require your second dose in order for it to be complete. But encourage your neighbors, your friends, your co-workers to be vaccinated as well. The world is changing drastically, and we are already hearing some countries who are considering vaccine passports in order for you to travel to their territories. We're hearing airlines who have already been suggesting that you will have to show proof of being vaccinated. So even outside of just quarantine, we just want to encourage persons, if you're going to be able to do a lot of what you would want to do, internationally even, it is looking as if vaccination is what would be required to travel, etc. So we are encouraging persons, please, the vaccine is free of cost. Get all the information you need to get, ask questions. When you go to the health centers themselves, the nurses are more than willing to answer any questions or concerns that you may have. And I've been telling persons, when you go take 9 persons with you, 1 vial having 10 doses, so you and your friends can have that 1 vial just for you, and you can use it and take a picture and say, this was your herd's vial. So consider your small group, your own small herd that you're trying to be able to have vaccinated, so that we can then get to that herd immunity of 70%. Now once we get there, then the quarantine will be looked at.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Prime Minister, we had questions to you. The caller asking, how are ministers helping to get the word out in their constituencies about vaccination, as well as a question about what the police is doing regarding noise pollution. And Ms. Matthews mentioned that you might be able to share more with us about the CARICOM Consumer Protection Bill, or Act rather.
Thank you. I am happy that the consultation and the outreach is taking place. Price control has been with us for a very long time, and the question is, how do we make it effective? And it requires largely a commitment from the private sector in terms of the sourcing of goods. Can we get the best product at the most affordable price? It requires a sense of discipline, and there are times one gets a sense that there is possible price gouging, and where people take advantage. And that, of course, was reflected during the pandemic, where prices move in very volatile ways, not reflecting one would consider normal movement in the prices. And so it is something that the Chamber must always bring a strong ethical fiber, ethical inclination to those who are doing business, and one need to be reminded of these things. And so it is an ongoing work. Through the price control unit within the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, they do regular inspection of prices. There was a time not too long ago when they did comparative prices across supermarkets so that consumers would be better informed about the price of certain products and who was providing the best particular price. That certainly has helped. largely one of the principles that govern the price control in the past has been that a fixed markup is determined for the good, whether it's 10% or 15%. And of course, over time, these things have to be reviewed. But sometimes we get a sense that the supermarkets are going beyond reasonableness. In the same way, sometimes the farmers are being accused of being volatile in their pricing. This week the price is one thing, next month the price is another. And so that requires some sense of self-regulation, that you can't, as it were, take all, as we would say, in one go. And that we need stability of prices if people are going to properly budget and properly manage. But that is a work in progress. Competition does in fact helps in the free market. And what we want are smart people, knowledgeable people to become involved in the business, particularly in retail, so that they can offer reasonable substitutes and alternatives. And that, of course, helps somewhat in having a modulating impact upon price. But it's an ongoing work. How far must the government go? Must the government bring more items onto the price control list? We started with the concept that it should be a very few basic items. Sugar, for example, flour, milk, the basic items that have become staples. We have to look certainly at the price of chicken, because that too is staple, and fish, and so on, and collaborate. One of the projects that started some years ago in the Ministry of Agriculture, and it was being led by Green Knight, was to assist the farming community in determining what is the cost of production, so that people understand it's costing me $2 or $1 to produce a pound of tomato. Therefore, I put a markup of 25% or whatever is a reasonable markup, rather than out of the blue, someone pull a price, take it or leave it, this is the price of my product. So these issues, again, bring in the science, bring in a reasonable approach to doing business. We are still some ways away from that. And so it will take some effort, some persuasion, and obviously competition helps. Competition helps tremendously, and we would want to see more of that. We have moved a long way from when we had cable and wireless alone. And we see some of the benefits of competition. And of course, over time, you know, from monopoly to duopoly and oligopoly, and so on and so on. And so we still have to look that people can come together to defend the market turf. And therefore, it's always need for some form of a regulatory body, as Giselle has said, that is looking through these things, and to which a concerned member of the public can go to have redress. We are not yet at that level of sophistication as they are in some countries where you have public hearing. You can't just move your price of certain product in a certain way, well, upwards, without consideration being taken of these issues by a regulatory body. So the matter of price control, we are sensitive to it, always will be, but at the time of the pandemic, we need certain assurance from the business community that they are doing the right thing, and largely that they are exercising conscience. That is critical in this particular context. And where those the ethical principles fail, then the state certainly has an obligation to intervene to protect the poor and to protect the needy. The chamber has a moral suasion, among other things, to say to its members, frankly, your prices are moving too rapidly. We are shopping too. And we experience the irregularity of the pricing and the markup, etc. And we need you to be able to address these things in a rational way. And I believe that certainly would help. With respect to the issue, what is being done to help with the public information campaign, particularly at the level of the political leadership. We have started this exercise 2 weeks. We are now in the 3rd week, and there have been many voices with respect to this in the Parliament, outside of the Parliament, on the radio, from politicians and non-political actors. And yes, those who are representatives and those who want to be have to be on the right side of history, urging people to follow the science. The science now is now settled. Indeed, over 1 year ago, when we started on this fight, we made it very clear that until we get to vaccination, we had to be wearing our masks, the social and physical distancing, the hand sanitization, etc., because there were no cure. There were no pharmaceutical response. We're now at the point where we have a pharmaceutical response. We're now at the point where we have vaccination, and our people have to understand this is it. This is your moment. And as I said, the vaccines, they have a shelf life, and they have a relatively short life. And so when we get them, we want people to take them very quickly, long before the expiry date. They're not things that we want to bring and to have waiting. So again, I want to urge every citizen and every resident to go quickly and get themselves vaccinated. There has been town hall in number 3. I think there's one to happen tomorrow, also at St. Johnson's Community Center. We would want to invite those who are in West Barnsley, in fact, any interested person, to be part of that discussion. I think Dr. Cameron Wilkerson will be at that one. There's also another town hall, Central Barnsley. And that one is taking place at McKnight. There's going to be on Thursday a town hall meeting at the St. Paul's Community Center. We will have Dr. Wilkerson there. We'll have the PS in Health, Dr. Lois Stapleton Harris. She will be there. And we will have the district doctor, Dr. Bernicia, also Nisbet, being part of that particular discussion. At least they are expected to be present. The lead presenter will be Dr. Cameron Wilkerson. I know Dr. Bernicia is also meeting with the Bernicia Nisbet, with the PTAs of various schools of the constituency, again to help them better understand the realities surrounding the vaccines and what can be done. In number 7, we have been encouraging people. We have been using the bullhorns in the days, advising people to go get vaccinated, and we are doing all that we can to encourage people out, because it is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do not just for yourselves, but for the wider community. And very soon, we are seeing it happening in Europe, we are seeing it happening in Israel, where people are saying that really you're only going to enter if you're vaccinated. They are now setting up special corridors where persons who are vaccinated can access restaurants, can do certain things, and those who are not, again, would be excluded. It is a changing world. And at one point, the critical element, apart from your tickets and your visas for entering the country, was that you must come with your negative tests. Very soon, it will be that you must come showing us that you are vaccinated. Persons are not going to invest billions of dollars to vaccinate their people in the USA and in Europe, to have persons come who are not vaccinated and to put them back from whence they have come. It has been such a difficult experience worldwide, difficult on people, difficulties for families, difficulties for the economy, everywhere. The USA, Europe, all have lost a lot of life, a lot of economic activity. Airlines basically gone bankrupt, out of business, etc. And so No one wants to get back from whence we have come. And each of us has to do the right thing. And our health team is considering, as we move closer towards herd immunity, what further restrictions we can do. The more that we get people out there taking the vaccine, the more we are getting towards normalcy. The more we can allow the people to go and watch their football games, because people have been vaccinated, and the vaccination brings a certain higher level of protection and reduce the chance of the transmission. So the more people get moving, the more we have the leaders in their companies saying to their staff, their employees, have you been vaccinated? Because as customers, more of them become vaccinated, they are going to be concerned. When they come to your business, who do you have serving me? Who do you have at the front line? As your cashiers, as your tellers, on your service providers. And so it means again that the chamber has to be in the forefront, assisting business with information, doing talks, but letting them to understand we are in a new mode of organization, and that we can't allow ourselves to lag in doing the right thing. So again, urging everyone to become vaccinated, and there's no time like now to get that done.
The question about noise pollution? Can you respond to that?
Noise pollution is a matter I will speak to Commissioner Brandy. It's a question of enforcement, because there is a Noise Abatement Act, I think it's called, and there are penalties. Loud noise that is not that is offensive to anyone is in fact a breach of the laws, and the police have the power to intervene. That is why sometimes on the strip the police will go, because neighbors would call and say, well, this noise is disturbing me. And people have a right to quiet, exercise, quiet enjoyment of their residence, etc. And so it's a question of enforcement, and I will speak to the commissioner so that he can appropriately intervene in this matter. Specifically distressing, as Mr. Culture said, is the volume, this loud volume that persons in their cars and in their trucks, etc., pass through communities, and it just doesn't make much sense except to them. And it is something that we really have to deal with. Noise is a problem, and we have to quiet the noise in every way that we can.
We are going to go back to the phone lines, like I said, to give persons who didn't get an opportunity to participate another chance to do so. The numbers are 466-2666, 662-8674, 767-4765, and the international line is 1-239-645-4500. And just to let you know, if you want to send a WhatsApp message, you can send it to 661-5683. That's 661-5683. And if you want to send a voice note, you can send it to 660-7168. That's 660-7168. And the numbers are listed at the bottom of your screen for your convenience. We will also take questions from our social media platforms for persons engaging with the program via Facebook or YouTube. So we'll go back to the phone lines. Welcome to Leadership Matters. You're live. Hello, good evening.
Good night, Ms. Byron. Good night.
Good evening.
And good night to all the Star Wars women them who serving at the top in different business in the Federation of Cinque Nevis, especially Miss Brandy, Giselle Matthew, and Sir Pat Walters there, and the Minister, Miss Byron Nisbet. I want to commend her. I think for a short time she has done a wonderful job. And this is what we want the ladies to do. When they're at the front, they push forward, even push down the man them. You understand? Because that's what we want as a woman. And I want to commend the Honorable Prime Minister and the Cabinet for the wonderful work they have done in this COVID-19 situation. After we get this toughest case and the country closed, I want to commend the Prime Minister for his strong leadership he has done to combat this COVID out of the Federation of Cinque Nevis. It could not be better. I do know that where this country like it is be if we didn't have a strong leader like Dr. Harris and the Cabinet to close the country down, because I made to understand in other countries, when I listen to news, government got to close down the country and people making riot because they want to be a new one and they want to work. But the Prime Minister has done a wonderful job. The economy getting back there, the country open up gradually, people is coming in, and I just want the people to stick to the protocol and go out and take the vaccine, because if we get 70% of the vaccine in the Federation, people vaccine, that means that we can get the borders open up more, we can get cruise ship, and I believe that is a good thing for us, that if the country open back up and people will go to God, because I made to understand over 5,000 workers.
Okay, we lost that caller, unfortunately, but thank you so much for what you were able to share with us. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Yeah, good night. This is me again, Bucket. I'll be very brief. Just want to acknowledge you, Ms. Brian, for taking over from Valence Grant. And I see you're doing a wonderful job. I love the way you interact and make sure that all the questions are being answered. And I want to acknowledge my mother, who have a very big job raising 4 wonderful children. She have not worked since I know her. So she's more like self-employed and tasked with a big job, making sure Bucket is very stable and focused to come every Tuesday on Leadership Matters to help. Question to Aquila. Aquila, would you be in a position to sort of get some of these taxi drivers to go and pick up elderly persons and take them to be vaccinated? Because I've noticed that there's a cry, for employment. And this might be an avenue that your ministry might take up. I don't know if there can be a funding, notwithstanding that the government cannot employ everybody, get jobs for everybody. But during this pandemic, I think that it can be considered or looked into where taxi drivers can get a little break in taking persons through and through for vaccinating. Continue doing a good job.
Thank you so much, and I too would like to salute your mother. Mothers play a very critical role in fostering all the people and leaders of this federation. And Bucky, I believe you were a handful. Just to say, I'm filling in for Miss Grant, Valencia Grant, who ably hosts the program. She's out on leave, and hopefully she'll be rejoining us shortly. I know she is eagerly anticipating coming back to meeting with all of you. But I thank you so much for your kind words, Bucky. We'll take another call. Welcome to Leadership Matters.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening to all. I don't have a question, Jackie, but I'm calling to give an employee's perspective, if you will, because quite rightly there may be those who say, well, this is who she says she is. But what would her staff say? And I'm speaking, of course, of our CEO, Ms. Patricia Walters. And this is what this staff would say. She is truly a leader, a visionary leader, a leader with a vision. She knows exactly where she wants to go. And the good thing about it, Jackie, she brings her staff along with her on the journey. She provides the guidance, the direction, and I would dare add the tools needed to accomplish any task at hand. But Pat, as she's affectionately called, Jackie, I would say she strikes the right balance for a CEO. Stern and rigid when the moment calls for it. And on the other hand, I would say she allows her staff to take the initiative, to be creative. And Jackie, and then at that point, she becomes your biggest cheerleader. We are truly, truly, truly happy to have her at the helm. Kudos to you, Pat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was very nice, and it further says that, you know, there are people out there who just admire all of you in different ways, and to actually call in and say it is a very big step. Don't underestimate how much of an impact it could have just to call and tell somebody what you think about them and how you think the role they've been playing have been encouraging others. And she's blushing, by the way, should I say. We don't have any additional calls, so we'll respond to the question we got. We got a question about if taxi drivers can pick up the elderly and take them. Well, you know what? I think we could leave that question. I don't think we have any others. So we'll take that question with the WhatsApp messages. We'll take a break now, and when we return, we'll respond to the questions and suggestions we got via WhatsApp and the last caller, and we'll have our wrap-up, and then we'll bring the program to a close. So don't touch that dial, stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety protocols and, most importantly, rolling up my sleeve for the vaccine. So I'm encouraging you to do the same, because that's our best shot of protecting ourselves, our family, and our friends. So don't wait, vaccinate. Let's roll up to roll out.
Welcome to Leadership Matters. Welcome back, rather, to Leadership Matters. And we're on the final leg of the program. It has been a truly amazing program so far, and I really appreciate the presentations and the feedback and contributions we've gotten from the callers. And this is the point where we take voice notes, WhatsApp messages, and questions posted via Facebook and YouTube. And we offer that opportunity for persons as well. We are also going to answer a question that was posed by a caller just before we took a break. But at this point, we're going to play some voice notes that we've received. And I'm excited because this is the first time we're going to be playing voice notes. We've given that option. So we're going to play those voice notes, and then we're going to address and have some responses.
Good evening to everyone. My question is there anything on the book to raise the minimum wage a little more? Because like people like myself, that doesn't depend on the government, that I could at least help myself a little better. I would like to know that. Thank you.
Aquila Byron Nisbet, Minister Byron Nisbet, if a consideration would be taken to have taxi drivers pick up the elderly and take them to get vaccinated.
Yes, thanks, Jackie. I actually think that that's a really good idea that we should pursue, and so we will look into how we can make this possible. So thanks so much for that thought, Bucky. That's a really good suggestion and something that we certainly will look into pursuing.
We have a question via WhatsApp. What is the plan for an integrated electronic medical record system in the Federation? And I know that's something you've spoken of before.
Yes. So that's twofold. We have two projects that we are pursuing this year at the Ministry of Health. The first is the being able to launch or implement our health information system, which is basically, just as you're saying, an integrated electronic system for health. This is so that all of our health records, no matter where you are in the country, no matter where you would access your health or your health services, your information and medical records will be electronic. It's a system that once we do get it implemented, you visit, it's going to be implemented first at our institutional-based services, that is our hospitals, starting with JNF and Mary Charles. Once you visit the hospitals, you will be given a medical ID. That medical ID will store all of your information as it relates to your health services that you would have access throughout the public system. We also have another project where we are connecting all of our health centers back to Joseph and France General Hospital so that we can then implement that same health information system within our health centers, which means that if you would access your health services in the hospital or community, your information will be stored electronically, so no matter where you access the service, the doctors, the nurses would be able to have access to your information, click of a fingertip. And so we are very excited about that implementation. We are hoping, we are working towards having it implemented by the end of the year. So we are keeping our fingers crossed that we are able to have that successful rollout of the health information system so that we can say by December of this year that our Joseph and France Hospital and our Mary Charles Hospital are completely electronic. So we're looking forward to that. And then also being able to connect all of our health centers back to JNF so that the information can be shared easily between the hospitals and community, so that if you have persons who need referral, for instance, you come in as a diabetic patient at JNF and you need to be followed up by your community health nurses. The information will be easily shared between both the hospital and the community health centers so that your information and your access to care would be easily done. And so yes, we are afoot in getting that done this year, and I'm very excited. We are working with a good team of persons to help us implement these two projects, and so soon enough you will hear more information. Of course, before we implement, we will share information with the general public on what to expect
when you come to JNF once we become completely digital. So I'm looking forward to that.
Ready? Okay, I'm told we're now ready. If you saw me gesturing, I'm communicating with our producers. I'm told we're now ready to play those voice notes for you. Remember, this is something new that is being introduced because we want to give persons who listen and view the program as many options as possible to participate. So we're going to play those voice notes for you now.
The other question is, at Marriott Hotel, there's COVID going on right now and they're bringing in people from overseas to work, and there's a lot of locals that still is out of work.
To bringing some order to the vaccination process, persons are flocking to the Newtown Health Center instead of going to the centers in their residential areas, creating long lines, and there's no social distancing. Wait times are in excess of 3 hours, and at this rate, they're saying that people will lose their jobs, perhaps homes and lives from standing so long in excessive heat.
Yes, thank you.
Max. All 11 of our health centers on St. Kitts and all 6 on Nevis are now open and providing vaccine. And so persons are encouraged to use those facilities within their own communities in order to be able to access care. Outside of that, we are also going to be starting vaccinations on Saturdays to allow persons the option to be able to use the Saturdays to be vaccinated. That way you won't lose your job if you have a long wait. But we were in the initial stages. We were getting things going in terms of the vaccination rollout. We are now 2 weeks and some in, and so now we have the vaccinations being accessed by throughout all of the health centers on St. Kitts and Nevis. So visit any of the health centers. If you go to Newtown and you feel like the wait is too long, bet your life. There's Bastille, there is Ziet Bay, Sadler's, St. Paul's, St. Peter's. You name it, you can go to that health center and be able to have the vaccination. Remember, the times during the week is 1 until 5 p.m. And as I said, we'll be sharing more information this week as we begin the rollout of our Saturday vaccination as well.
Thank you so much for that. We have a few questions and comments for the Prime Minister. One is about, good evening, how can one get a meeting with the Prime Minister? I'm living in Nevis. And we have a question about the Data Privacy Authority. The person says that, what is the plan? They ask, what is the plan for a Data Privacy Authority in the Federation? I know we currently have legislation on the books that address the protection of consumer data. And there's another question related to the Data Privacy Authority in St. Kitts asking, what is the timeline to establish that authority? So if you could respond to those.
The Data Privacy Authority is something that is being worked on. We have an information officer appointed in the Office of the Attorney General, and he is working diligently to ensure all the necessaries are put in place. It really is a time-consuming effort because across government we have tons of data, and it's a question of getting them digitized and in a form that is readily accessible, and beyond that to ensure appropriate security is in place, because data security now is a key component, and we have to get that right, or else information could end up anywhere, much to the discomfort of persons. And so what I will do will be to raise this at our next meeting or the next occasion with the Attorney General, who have done quite a bit of work in terms of the data protection law, and in whose office we have an information officer whose job it was to work to ensure that we can deliver with respect to this particular matter. The other question was?
The person lives in Nevis and they want to know how can they get a meeting with you?
I did promise that this year we would have the federal office actively in use. One of the reasons for doing so is to satisfy the real need of people in Nevis who would need to have an audience from time to time with the Prime Minister to be able to do so in a more convenient way than having to cross the waters to come down. The present area in which we are, they need for some significant renovation of the property. We have contemplated some other options. I will have to get an update as to where we are at in relation to those. In any event, in order to ensure that the inconvenience that persons now have is corrected, we would look at some temporary arrangement. And I promise very shortly we will make an announcement of that, because there's a genuine commitment to accessibility by all of our citizens and residents being able to meet and to engage with the Prime Minister at a convenient place and venue. And so this is something that we will try to put in place, hopefully very shortly.
We have another question or message here rather for you. It says, we all grew up with bands playing from 10 p.m. at night until 3 a.m. in the morning. So why is it an issue? Because I like my music loud and you don't like it. This needs to be properly addressed. Let's get this fair, and this is a democratic state.
And the caller or the person with the WhatsApp is so right. It is a democratic state, and democratic state have rules and laws, and which persons are asked willingly to comply to with, or else there are going to be consequences in terms of prosecution. And the point that Mr. Culture was making, which I think most people would agree with him, we have instances where the noise is deliberately being allowed to get out of control, and that it has consequences for people's eardrums, people's health, people's ability to sleep, and the principle that every citizen and resident is entitled to quiet enjoyment. And so it is, the fairness is in striking that fair balance between your, preference, don't know if there's a right, there's no right, but your preference for having it loud, and the other person's own individual right not being encroached upon. And so each of us then has to be responsible. And one responsible act is when you hear your neighbor says, your noise is disturbing me, at least you turn it down a bit. You show some consideration that you are infringing upon their right of enjoyment. Clearly, in certain places or when we go to certain space, we have a certain expectation which we all share. We have gone, for example, to music festival in the old-time days, not in the COVID-19 pandemic, and we know, well, we are going to hear loud music. So all who have gone, whether they perhaps like it very loud or not, that is a reasonable expectation to which they buy into. That is a different to a man comes next to this neighbor house and his volume is up to the highest limit that is possible, and showing a lack of consideration for others. So again, in a democratic society, we are called upon to act responsibly. We are called upon to respect difference, and the difference in this case is the toleration for noise, the tolerance for noise. And so we would want everybody to do the right balance. And usually it is the police that intervenes when someone is accused of being intolerant in terms of the level of noise. So if you're on the strip and your noise is disturbing the person in Frigate Bay, he or she has the right to call the police. And the police has an obligation to investigate and to ask you to rectify the particular problem. So it is not something that is a real big issue unless we make it. I'm saying when persons are driving through communities and the noise is so loud with the boxes outside, I mean, who are you entertaining? it really is not good, and it is something that we have to, again, be fair about, be honest about, and just show consideration for the others. So I think, though it may appear we are on different sides, I am with you in terms of the fairness principle. And yes, in a free land, you have to ensure that you use your freedom wisely, you exercise them wisely, so that you do not shackle other people by your own behaviors.
Thank you so much for that response. We're going to try one more time to play the voice note that we received.
Good evening to everyone. My question is there anything on the book to raise the minimum wage a little more? Because like people like myself, that doesn't depend on the government, that I could at least help myself a little better, I would like to know that. Thank you. The other question is, at Marriott Hotel, there's COVID going on right now, and they're bringing in people from overseas to work, and there's a lot of locals that still is out of work.
Okay, I believe those would be for the Prime Minister, but I would like to really thank the staff working behind the scenes at ZIZ for working so hard to ensure that your voice was heard. Thank you so much, guys. Mr. Prime Minister?
Thank you. The matter of the minimum wage is an important one, and perhaps Giselle will have something to say in the wrap-up. Indeed, before 2020, this was something that was actively being pursued by the government with the chamber, and it was being pursued then by the Honorable Van Samey, who was the Minister of Labour, among other things. We had the tripartite committee engaged on that subject matter. The matter did not complete, was not brought to completion because, of course, we went into the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything was shut down, and that got, I would say, not shut down because you have raised it, that got deprioritized in the scheme of things because survival was more important then. The question now, though, would be one of timing with respect to this, because at this time, a number of businesses are having cash flow difficulties. And so if you were to increase the minimum wage, would it be sustainable? Can businesses at this particular time endure a wage increase? Certainly when the COVID-19 would have passed and the economy would have strengthened and entities would have strengthened, we could go back and to complete this exercise. The issue of price control is related to this because it is the inability of the minimum wage to represent a livable wage, provide enough for people to live, that brings the pressure and the call for a raise in the minimum wage. Again, it is something that we have not taken off the table. Just to say though, minimum wage pertains both for persons in the government and wider public sector as it does to private sector. So it's not just for private sector persons. Once the minimum wage is established, it is established for all categories of worker, wherever you find yourself, private sector, NGO, government, etc. The matter of the work, well, the protection of nationals, particularly in this context, where there has been high displacement in the tourism sector, is one I am happy that the caller has raised, and it is one which I will engage the Ministry of Labour and National Security upon. Clearly, in times like these, our first duty must be to protect our people who are here. And the work permit rule, as it currently exists, was intended to strike that delicate balance between an employer's right or prerogative to get adequate, supportive labor support and at the same time to ensure that our own people were not made worse off as a result of the recruitment of someone from abroad. That is why there is the stipulation that before a non-national could be employed, there is a need for a work permit, and the employer should by law advertise the vacancy in public space, newspapers, etc., online for, I think it is a minimum of 3 consecutive weeks. That is to allow the larger national community to become aware of it, and the employer in the application to the Ministry of National Security must show that they have advertised that they did not receive a successful applicant from within country, thereby providing a justification, at least on paper, for them to be able to recruit. We have to look at this and whether we will put specific prohibition for a certain period of time. I think it is a valid policy point, and we will, of course, give consideration to this matter. And once a policy is arrived at, the policy may say, let it be as it is. It may say, do perhaps what the caller is inviting us to consider. And, you know, we will look at all the pros and cons and come up with a good judgment on it. I want to say that that call has been an interesting one, and really to thank the callers tonight for very sensible questions that have had us thinking deeply about policy issues. Some of them may not have been in the forefront, but we need to get them there because they are on the minds of the people who we serve.
And at this stage, we are going to have closing remarks by our panelists, and we will proceed in a reverse order from how we started. So first, we'll have Chief Executive Officer at the Cable, Patricia Walters, giving her closing remarks.
Thank you so much. It's been such a refreshing, inspiring panel discussion. One of my favorite sayings is, in life you don't always get what you deserve, you get what you tolerate. And I think, you know, I'd like to leave by saying, don't tolerate just enough, average, mediocrity. Expect and strive for excellence. I was asked to say just a little bit about some of my challenges, and I'll give you one example of a challenge. And I was working in Cayman, and I was helping my team to rearrange the office furniture. And the contractor came in, and he said to me, "Oh, you look like, you know, you're organizing, you can organize well. I assume you're managing the cleaners," so the people cleaning the desks. And I looked at him. I said, "I want to meet with the chief financial accountant because I'd like to get paid early." And I said, "Okay." And he said, where is he? Is he here now? I said, "Actually, the CFO's not here, but I'll make sure that they see you tomorrow. Just come back at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and I'll make sure that they're expecting you." He went, "Okay then." He came back at 9 o'clock the next morning, and my secretary showed him into my office, and I said, "Good morning." He said, "Who are you?" I said, "I'm the CFO." And I said, "And I understand you want to be paid early." And he said, "Yes." So I said, "Okay, we can accommodate this," and we bartered, we negotiated. And I could have handled it differently, because I could have flared up and said, "You know, you're always thinking this racism, blah, blah, blah." And he would have not felt as compromised, as guilty, as embarrassed as when he came. So next time he looks at a black woman in a setting or a black man in a setting, he doesn't automatically think they're cleaning or they're inferior to him. And so he apologized profusely, and we became really good colleagues after that, well, colleagues as such. So that's one of the challenges, many, many, many of them. But I say that to say, don't tolerate it. Do the right thing with professionalism and with excellence. And finally, as we climb the ladder as females, it's important to me to kind of reach back, hold her hand and pull her up. Now, pulling her up is not always a nice pull up. Sometimes it's, listen, you need to step up. You need to actually, develop yourself. You just can't be entitled because you think you're female. It could be hard reality, but I think it's an important thing that as we grow as leaders, we allow others to grow, we nurture them, and we make them shine.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that and sharing that experience and that story. We'll now hear from the president of the Cinque and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Giselle Matthews.
Okay, so before I do my official close, I will have to touch on what the Prime Minister has asked me to touch on, so I have a little work to do here. So on the matter of the minimum wage, the National Minimum Wage Advisory Committee presented a paper back in 2019. And the National Advisory Committee composed of government, workers' representatives, employers, civil society, and other key stakeholders. The final paper really was a few pages in length and gave the synopsis as to why at the time minimum wage increase was not feasible. Cinque has the highest minimum wage in the OECS, the lowest being Grenada at $4.50. St. Lucia does not have an official minimum wage. However, they have a minimum wage based on sectors. So we stand pretty strong in Cinque, and we have a better a better standard of living than many of our Windward Island neighbors. But a minimum wage increase has several if you think about it as an employer, increasing a minimum wage would have a tremendous impact on the overall economy. And I'm not saying that it's not something that would be feasible in the future, but certainly right now, sitting in COVID, if it's set too high, the minimum wage will then cause a spiral in unemployment because businesses will not allow the minimum wage to displace small businesses overall, their expenditure, which should not account for more than 60% of their operating expenses. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. Another reason why the paper, looked at several factors. What other government subsidies were there? The PEP, the STEP program to create employment. There is the poverty alleviation program, and it particularly was set up for those households that were earning under $3,000 per month to assist in those areas. So just to give a little backdrop, that's where we are with that. That paper was submitted, and it was a consortium of representatives between the private sector, the public sector, and quite an assortment of discussions went on with the manufacturing sector also. So, but I'm sure, as the Prime Minister said, this is a matter that I'm sure might come up again at some point. But I think at this point, I certainly, as the President of the Chamber, would advise that we look at other options. We've had a lot of charitable, even within the chamber, we raised about close to $44,000 in food vouchers, and we donated those. And I am quite happy to have our members do that again. And we will work with social services and gender affairs and the Red Cross to disperse those. So those are the areas that we can help. And I'm quite happy to drive that again with another initiative through our membership. Challenges. So yes, I have had some, believe it or not. Well, one in particular I would say was when I was trying to expand my business into the industrial site, and I found it very frustrating and difficult. I hit a lot of roadblocks. Trying to find a property was just difficult. There were many areas of frustration for me. I almost gave up at one point. But one day I thought I'll let all the lawyers and everybody just back off, and I just thought I'll go myself. And there were a lot of communication between the lawyers and the bank, and trying to get a property was not easy either. I did my own homework. I hit a lot of doors, and you have to understand, why are they going to help me? But I had a vision, and I wanted to expand my business, and my customers were demanding more of me. And I had a decision to make. Do I stay small in downtown? Do I just keep this little store? Or do I go with the big guys? Do I give my customer what they really want? Because at the end of the day, it was really, I could have kept my life quite simple and not take on the extra headache But I wanted to deliver something really good to Cinque that I felt we needed and I could do. And so I decided to jump in, and I knocked on the doors, and I did it myself. And I went in, and at one particular meeting, I don't want to call any names, and I think they looked at me and thought, well, why are you here? The paperwork is, the lawyers involved. And I said, no, because I just wanted to talk to you directly. I employ locals. I am from here. Why not give me that chance? And quite honestly, I don't really know what resonated, but several weeks later, the lawyers came back and said, well, I don't know, but you have an option here that its property you could purchase and move ahead with your plans. And so sometimes I think what I'm saying is, you don't think that you can do it, or you're not sure even why. But if you really have a deep passion inside of you, and you have the gumption, sometimes you have to take the seat at that table. And as my friend said, and I think I will end with this, but before I continue, I'd like to say the Chamber of Commerce now has 6 women and 6 men on its board, and that is huge. And of course, next to me, Pat Walters is one of my board of directors, and we have a very good working relationship with the men on the board. We have fun too, right, Pat? I mean, we make good decisions. We throw different ideas out there. They have a different view. We have a different view, and we always come together and with a consensus. And I think that the Chamber is a good example, along with our government here, who predominantly, you heard the Prime Minister this week, most of the permanent secretaries and senior ministers in the government, ambassadors are women. So in the Caribbean, and in particular in Cinque, I think we are very fortunate to have women who are thriving. We're able to vote, we're able to work, all those things that we take for granted, and able to lead. And I believe that, we are on the right track, and we are way ahead of many other countries with gender parity. But I'd leave you with something maybe a little light at the end, from a friend of mine who sent this about taking your seat at the table. If there was not a seat to take, I would bring my own chair, because a seat at the table guarantees the opportunity for me to be fed. If there was not a table to sit at, I will build my own table. I know too many women that believe they don't have the opportunity, the ability, or the gall to contribute if they are at the table. By nature, women are contributors. They are multitaskers, caregivers, and leaders. Be at the table, create your own table if needed. Eat, share, serve it. Sit for the 7 courses, and even ask for seconds. This is relevant all over the world. Never forget to create a seat or to give your seat to another woman. We must support one another in order to continue to make progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We really appreciate you sharing your own personal life story with us. We'll hear now from the Junior Minister in the Premier's Ministry with responsibility for health and gender affairs, Mrs. Hazel Brandy Williams.
Thank you. Challenges. As we all know, politics is still a male-dominated space. However, we would have made great strides in Cinque Nevis, but there is still so much more to be done. Women who are interested in entering elective politics, they have some concerns, and their concerns are, one, no legislation in place to provide that space for women. When we look at some place like Guyana, where they operate on a quota system, seats are left for women. And so maybe the time is right for us to start to look at some sort of legislation, some sort of quota system, or perhaps extending the boundaries so that we can have some more seats. And if we have some more seats, then we can allocate some seats that are to be allocated to women. Another challenge that we face, and I can personally speak to that, women with children. Having 2 small boys and being a single parent, it is challenging. But we have to prioritize. Once we have a circle of family circle that could assist, then it makes it so much more easier. But that is one of the area that makes women so much more apprehensive in getting into elective politics and politics on a whole. As women, we must continue to help our sisters. We must continue to encourage our sisters and be there in, whatever area that they are asking and seeking for assistance and guidance. Mentoring is very important, and I am not certain, maybe I can throw this to the chamber as well, if there is a mentoring program that you have in place. So many of our young girls are out there, they need mentoring, they need so much persons like our good persons here to look up to and to tell them, how they need to carry themselves and really mentoring them into becoming fine young ladies. So maybe that we need a program like that to encourage our young girls to become good women. The motto from Civil is lifting each other up, one woman at a time. And I would like to say congratulations to the trainees of Civil. We are all celebrating our 10th anniversary this year of being Civil trained. Once again, it was indeed a pleasure being here with you, and I must say thank you once again to the Honorable Prime Minister, who would have asked us to share his stage and to bring some of our experiences to women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have so many households here headed by single mothers. I'm hoping that your story was able to resonate with them and inspire them in some way. We'll hear now from the Minister of Health, Information, Communication and Technology, Entertainment, Entrepreneurship and Talent Development, the Honorable Aquila Byron Nisbet.
Thank you so much, Jackie. And it was indeed a pleasure being here tonight and to be seated with these amazing women, and I want to thank the Prime Minister for this initiative. Personally for me, I can attest to the fact that the Prime Minister believes in giving everybody the opportunity. He doesn't look at it that, oh, you are a woman, or you are a young man, or you are old. What he sees is someone with potential, and he feeds that, and he gives you guidance and mentorship. I can say that because I have been fortunate enough to be able to have that type of mentorship from the Prime Minister, and I want to publicly thank him, as I usually do, for giving me that opportunity and giving me that chance and seeing something in me that I myself did not even see in myself, and for continuing to be a sounding board and someone that I can go to whenever it is that I need advice or assistance with anything. So publicly, again, I just want to say thank you to the Prime Minister for that. But throughout my lifetime, however, I have been fortunate enough to be surrounded by some very strong women, women who brought their own seats to the table, women who built their own tables. My grandmother, Miss Esdale, many know as Teacher Esdale from the Lily of the Valley Preschool, those persons in the communities of McKnight, Market Street, Dorset, would remember she was one of the pioneering women who would have started a preschool back in the time when preschools weren't even really known. And so I saw her when I grew up running a preschool as a strong woman, and I was able to be influenced by her life and the things that she did to ensure that our children were nurtured and cared for, and she was able to make sure that she did her part. I had my grandmother, Miss Byron, who owned her own restaurant and started that business very early at a time when you didn't have women who were owning their own businesses. She started a very successful restaurant, Excelsior Restaurant, which today continues. I can speak of my mother, who was, up to her point of retirement, became the Deputy General Manager for the National Caribbean Insurance Company. I can speak of my Aunt Jennifer, who was the Managing Director at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. These women in my life made me, as well as my other siblings and cousins, female that is, we always were of the opinion that there was no such thing as a difference between male or female. They taught us that women are capable of doing anything, and you just had to be able to step up. Whatever it is that you wanted to achieve, go after it. Don't let anybody tell you that you're a woman and so you can't. And I remembered when I entered into IT, I was always told, no, that's a man's world. You won't be able to progress. And I could remember my family saying, but remember, you are just a human being. It doesn't matter if it's male or female. It is what you want to do. So stay focused and just do whatever it is you desire to do. But it was not just the women. There were also men who had to play a part as well, because women do need the support of men as well in order for us to be able to achieve what we need to achieve. We need their support because, yes, it is a male-dominated world. And sometimes you need that one man who would step out and said, this individual, not woman or man, but this individual have the capabilities and they're able to. And so I must thank those men who have been like mentors in my life as well. I've spoken of the Prime Minister already, but very early I was introduced to Director Maynard for the Haynes Smith Miss Caribbean Talented Teen Pageant, and he nurtured me throughout my journey with that pageant. I started working with that pageant at the age of about 16 or 17, and from that point he always said, you are capable of being a good organizer and we're going to work with you to make sure you can develop those skills. And those skills took me straight up to chairmanship of the very prestigious pageant. And so you do need those men who would see something in you and push you, not just saying that you're a man or woman, but seeing your potential and pushing you in order for you to be able to achieve what you need to achieve. I remember earlier, Hazel would have spoken about the fact that she had her husband who would have helped her maneuver. And I can say the same thing of my husband as well. He's been helping me maneuver this male-dominated field, giving me guidance and support, and I'm very thankful for that. So we do need both men and women who will be able to be voices. And it's not just about seeing persons based on gender, but rather seeing the potential in each individual and bringing that potential out. And so I just want to encourage other young women, and I will continue to do my part as well, because I believe just as I had such strong women who nurtured me, it's important too, just as Hazel said, that we do our part and nurture other young women who are coming in. And so for me personally, I find it very important that every opportunity I can get to just impart some thought or something to another young woman, I take the opportunity. And so I just want other women to do the same thing too. And it would not always be nice, as Pat says. Sometimes we have to be rough. Sometimes we have to be strict. But it's about making sure that your fullest potential is achieved. And so I just want to encourage young women, whether it's politics, it's IT, or it's any other field, scientists, whatever it is, that they always consider to be a male-dominated field. If you stay focused on achieving what you want to achieve, anything is possible. We no longer have those lines of male or female, and certainly in Cinque, as Giselle would have pointed out, we don't see that much of a difference between male or female. We've seen so many women take on such powerful roles. We have examples. It means all we need is women who are just younger women who are just willing and able to step out. Bring your own seat to the table. Build your own table if you have to. Seek advice. Seek out anyone who will be able to give you that type of encouragement that you need. And I know this panel here in particular, this panel of women, that is what they believe in as well. How can I help you help yourself? I know that for sure because I've seen it in action. I've seen it with Hazel. I've seen it with Pat. I've seen it with Giselle. They're always willing to see how much I can help another woman, another young woman, to get to where she needs to. And so I'm encouraging all the young women, don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't. When I grew up, my father said those words don't exist. There's nothing, there's no such word as can't. Anything is possible. And so I'm just encouraging you. Stop saying, I can't, I don't think, and start seeing where you want to go and said, these are the goals I'm going to set to get there. It was a pleasure being here tonight, and I believe that this indeed was quite the night, and I'm sure there are a number of young women out there who have been inspired by these ladies who were with me tonight on the panel, and I'm looking forward to further discussions. Thank you.
Like they would say in church, I feel a wind blowing over the land, a wind of movement, of women who now are saying, I can and I will. So, Mr. Prime Minister, you get to close the program.
Thank you very much. I'll give the final word to you. But it really has been an excellent evening. I want to thank those who helped to put this panel together and to provide me support in ensuring that as we celebrate International Women's Month, that we really hail the success stories of the women folk in Cinque and Nevis and around the world for that matter, and recognize that a small island state with a very tiny population, we really need all of us. And all we have as we fight, all the fights that have to be fought, like the pandemic, all of us have to be in it together. And throughout the pandemic, we adopted the philosophy of the all of society approach. And we really need to live it so that no one is left behind. I think Cinque and Nevis is showing exemplary leadership with the quality of our human resource and where our people across the gender divide have been able to go. And within our setting, we have created that conducive environment. Women slightly in the majority in terms of the census count. We need all of the talent, the experience, the abilities of our people being put to productive use. That include our men and our women. But most importantly, we cannot afford to exclude the women from the development agenda, from the agenda of forming and creating a better society and delivering a stronger and safer future for all. So I owe a debt of gratitude to all the participants, to you, Pat, who so readily agreed to have come and led your own experience, shared your own experience, which has been an interesting one. In fact, each of you and each of us each has a unique story to tell, and it has been told so vividly tonight that many would have been inspired from your own experiences. And as they listen to you, and they listen to Giselle, and they listen to Aquila, and they listen to Haley, they say, boy, I was at this particular point. So if you can rise, they too can rise. And I'm certain that your message, your powerful messages, personal and yet so publicly lived, could help to lift up, as Hazel admonished, it being the motto, the Training Institute, that we can lift up one woman at a time. But hopefully not just a woman, one man also, being inspired to find themselves, to find their value, their self-worth, and help us take the country forward. So it has been a blessing, and I pray that God's favor upon each of us here and our country as a whole. And I also want to thank especially Miss Brian Jackie for doing a very excellent job in moderating this panel, and I think she too has been lifted tonight and has been inspired. And she was inspired by you, Pat, and that's somewhere in me. And she was inspired by Giselle, she was inspired by Aquila, she was inspired by everybody. So again, thank you very much, and thank you all really for sharing, and I believe this really is a turning point in terms of how we see ourselves, that we understand we are interdependent, we need each other to contribute, and I'm happy to have led a leadership and a movement that has been wide in its embrace of all people, recognizing capacity, capability, willingness to contribute as being critical. So thanks again to all of you, and thanks to all who have tuned in and viewed this program.
And while we're thanking, I must also thank you for the opportunity to be here and have these experiences and engage with people the way I get to engage with people in this program. And in closing, I would just like to use this moment to salute the women who were recognized this week, just quickly, to say that the department, yes, we have women who are recognized on International Women's Day, and I think it would be nice to close the program by using this forum to highlight them. The Department of Gender Affairs awarded 5 women for International Women's Day. The awardees were Miss Janelle Williams in the area of entrepreneurship and innovation, Mrs. Michelle Christmas Jacobs in the area of communication, Miss Eulinis Brown in the area of healthcare, Miss Daly Kelly in the area of community outreach, and Miss Shalisa Rollins, who got the Prime Minister's Award. The Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources awarded 10 women in agriculture and fisheries for their contribution throughout the years within the sector in recognition of International Women's Day. And the honorees were Dr. Tracy Challenger for technical and administrative support in agriculture, livestock division, Ms. Denise Gillard for crop farming in the area of crop farming, Mrs. Tricia King in the area of technical and administrative support in marine resources, Ms. Natasha Leader in the area of women's group in agriculture, the Foy's Women's Agriculture Cooperative, Ms. Annette France in the area of livestock farming, Mrs. Joan Napier in the area of horticulture, Mrs. Francella Stephens in the area of fisheries, Mrs. Agnes Crossley for market vending, longest standing vendor in the public market. Yes, Ms. Crossley, thank you. Mrs. Arabella Nisbet in the area of agro-processing, and Miss Yvette Huggins in the area of meat trading. Thank you all so much for your contribution to this country, and thank you so much for making this program the success that it was. Have a wonderful rest of the night.
Yeah, I know we can make it. It's only just a phase. Once we're vaccinated, and everybody gonna be safe. Everybody gonna be safe. One kind, yeah. One people. We are roll up to roll up, yeah. 'Cause no man's alone. Do what's right, alright. 'Cause I love you, brother, my sister. And we're in this together, my sister, my brother. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much. I think it's better for us, yeah, yeah. It's better for us, yeah. I don't wanna lose you. I love you too much, yeah, yeah. It's better for us. Tell your mommy to let it roll out.
Bless up, Dejo here, and I'm doing my part in the fight against COVID-19 by following all safety